Welcome to 21st Sports recap and reaction for the Oakland Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs in their Week 17 matchup played January 3rd, 2016. We're going to go over the scores and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis as these two AFC West division rivals were going at it. And entering this game, the Chiefs still had a chance to win the AFC West division title. If they won and the Broncos lost, then they would win the West. But if the Broncos won, then regardless, they would be a wild card team. But either way, they would have to take care of their own business. Of course, the Raiders were looking to play spoiler, but the Chiefs coming into this game red hot had won 9 in a row. Then in the first quarter, on the very first possession of the game for Kansas City, they would march down the field and Alex Smith hit Jeremy Maclin for a 25-yard touchdown pass. Cairo Santos added the extra point, and it was 7-0 Kansas City over Oakland. Then with less than a minute left, still in the first quarter, Spencer Ware had a 3-yard touchdown run. Santos kicked the extra point, and it was now 14-0 as the Chiefs jumped out to the big lead early on in the first quarter. But then in the second quarter, the Raiders would get on the board with about 14 minutes still left before halftime. Sebastian Janikowski hit a 29-yard field goal, and it was now 14-3 as the Raiders cut into the lead, as it was now an 11-point lead for the Chiefs. But then with about 3.5 minutes still left in the first half, after both teams having an interception, first Alex Smith was intercepted, then Derek Carr was intercepted, then Alex Smith gets intercepted again, but this time it's a pick six as David Amerson runs it back 24 yards for the touchdown. Sebastian Janikowski adds the extra point, and it was now a 4-point game with the score Kansas City 14, Oakland 10. So that would be the score at halftime. Then in the third quarter, DJ Alexander gets a safety on the Raiders, and so now it was 2 more points for the Chiefs, 16-10, and then the Raiders would have to safety punt it to Kansas City. Kansas City would march down the field pretty quickly, and Alex Smith hit Demetrius Harris for a 15-yard touchdown. Cairo Santos added the extra point, and it was now 23-10 Kansas City. And this was with about 7 minutes still left in the third. Now let's fast forward to the fourth quarter with about 12 minutes left in this game. Kansas City would run almost 9 minutes off the clock in a drive that they had 13 plays but only went 52 yards, as they would end up in the red zone at the 19, but then they lost a couple yards, and then a penalty on a fourth down when they went for the field goal, a 39-yard field goal that would have made it 26-10, but instead the penalty against Kansas City for holding would push them back, and so now they ended up going for what turned into like a fake field goal for some reason. I think it was just a botched snap, but either way, it was a turnover on downs, and now the Raiders would take over with the score still 23-10. So Oakland would take over on their own 28 after the turnover on downs, and they would get into Kansas City territory on 1st and 10 from the 31. Derek Carr hit Michael Crabtree for a 31-yard touchdown. Sebastian Janikowski added the extra point, and all of a sudden it was a 6-point game with the score Kansas City 23, Oakland 17, and this was just before the 2-minute warning. So we would come to the 2-minute warning on the kickoff, and now the Chiefs would take over, but the Raiders held them to a 3-and-out, and so now Oakland would get the ball back after the punt with about a minute and a half on the clock, and the ball on their own 11-yard line. They would bring it up to the 35, having gotten a first down, but on 1st and 10 from the 35, Derek Carr was sacked by Frank Zombo, and it was actually a fumble, but it was recovered by Oakland. And then Carr rushed up to the line. He spiked the ball, and now it was 3rd and 21 from the 24. Carr would pass it to Rivera for 8 yards, but they failed to get back up to the line to spike it again, and this game came to a close with the ball in Oakland territory as the Kansas City Chiefs win 23-17, and they win their 10th game in a row. They are now 11-5, 6-2 at Arrowhead. The Raiders are 500 on the season on the road, 4-4. They're 7-9 overall. So Kansas City does their part, they get the win, but the Broncos would beat the Chargers, and so Kansas City would be a wild card team. So the Chiefs are going to be a wild card team, and as the wild card team, they're going to be going to Houston to face the Texans in wild card weekend. And the Raiders, their season has already been over, but they did make some strides. They almost got to 500, and they are headed in the right direction, although they are losing the legendary Hall of Famer Charles Woodson. But the Chiefs, they're moving forward. They're going into the playoffs, and they're the hottest team at this point heading into the postseason. They have the longest winning streak, and it's actually the longest winning streak in their franchise history. So Kansas City comes away with a big win, and Alex Smith was 14 for 24, 156 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Cairo Santos, he actually picked up 3 yards on that fake field goal on his one attempt. Spencer Ware had 16 carries for 76 yards. And Alex Smith had 61 rushing yards off of 9 carries. Chakandrick West had 13 carries for 34 yards. And Jeremy Maclin had 3 receptions for 54 yards and a touchdown. He also had 1 rush for 18 yards, which gave him 72 yards on the game. And for the Raiders, Derek Carr, 21 for 33, 194 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Latavius Murray, 11 carries for 31 yards. And Clive Walford, 4 catches for 46 yards. Michael Crabtree, 3 catches for 34 yards and a touchdown. Murray had 4 catches for 25 yards, which gave him 56 total yards in the game. Then we look at the kickers. Cairo Santos, 3 for 3 on the extra points, did not attempt a field goal. Sebastian Janikowski, 1 for 1 on the field goals, 2 for 2 on the extra points, as both kickers were perfect in this game. And on defense for Kansas City, Parker had a sack, an interception, and a forced fumble. Branch had a sack. Howard had a sack. Ford had a sack. Frank Zombo had a sack. DeVito had a sack. So the Chiefs combined for 6 sacks in this game. Zombo also with a forced fumble as well. And for the Raiders, Carey had an interception. Amerson had that pick 6 as he returned the interception for a touchdown. And Harris had a sack. We look at the team stats. 23 first downs for Kansas City, 14 for Oakland. And on third down, the Chiefs 6 of 13, 46% conversion rate. The Raiders 3 for 14, just 21% on third down. The Raiders went for it once on fourth down. They did convert. The Chiefs went for it twice on fourth down. They were 50% converting once and turning the ball over on downs once. And that, of course, that was that fake field goal. We look at the total net yards, 339 for Kansas City, 205 for Oakland. And on the ground, the Chiefs netted 189 rushing yards to just 48 net rushing yards for the Raiders. And through the air, the Raiders netted 157 as Carr was sacked 6 times, losing a total of 37 yards. And the Chiefs netted 150 as Smith was sacked once for a loss of 9 yards. Penalties in this game, 7 against the Raiders for 59 penalty yards, 5 against the Chiefs for 55 penalty yards. The Raiders had 2 fumbles, but they would recover both of their fumbles. In the red zone, Kansas City 2 for 3, 66%. The Raiders only made 1 trip to the red zone. They were 0 for 1 as it truly was the dead zone as Kansas City shut them down in that red zone, dead zone area. And for the time of possession, 34 minutes and 55 seconds for the Chiefs, 25 minutes and 5 seconds for the Raiders. So Kansas City, they jumped out to the big lead early on. They were in control for the entire game. They never trailed at any point. Oakland made it interesting in the end, as they tend to do. And that's a good sign for the Raiders. They never give up. They always keep on fighting to the end. And they're always there trying to make that comeback happen. But it would be for naught here in this game. Of course, Kansas City has an excellent defense, and they do what they have to get the W for the 10th week in a row. And they are heading into the playoffs as hot as could be, and that's what you want to do. You want to be heading into the playoffs with a win streak that breeds success in the postseason. So if they can just keep on doing what they're doing, keep on winning. It's already been a tale of two seasons for the Chiefs. They already tasted defeat early on, 1-5, but now they have felt the warm glow of winning as they just keep on winning and winning and winning and winning. And the question is, will they be able to continue their 10-game winning streak into the postseason? They will be in the wild card game next week in Texas against Houston and in Houston, and so it's not going to be an easy road to the Super Bowl 50 in Levi's Stadium. Will they make it there? We shall see. They're going to have to do it on the road. They're not going to have another home game this season, and typically, historically speaking, they are one of the better home teams. But in this win streak, they've been doing it both ways. They get their wins on the road. They also get their wins at home. But they are 5-3 on the road this season, so they are above 500 on the road. It's going to be interesting to see, especially in the AFC. Things are wide open. But we'll talk more about the playoff situation in the week to come, leading up to the wild card round and throughout the month. But as for this game, Kansas City coming up big time. The 6 sacks, keeping Carr under pressure and jumping out to that lead, giving themselves that cushion, and they were able to coast to the victory. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good week and having a great weekend and enjoying all the sports.